Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic of discussion is restoration comedy of manners. The term comedy of manners is generally associated with the restoration period. But we have to know it that comedy of manners was not invented by restoration dramatists. Comedy of manners is an old form of dramatic writing. Comedy of manners is a witty, cerebral form of comedy that satirizes its contemporary society. Historically, comedy of manners thrived in such period and society where material prosperity was combined with moral latitude, moral licentiousness. Such was the time in ancient Greece when Menander inaugurated new comedy. New comedy has been regarded as the forerunner of comedy of manners. The elaborate plot, the stock characters, and the elegant style of Menander were adapted, were copied by Roman playwrights like Plautus and Terence. The comedies of Plautus and Terence were widely known and adapted by the Renaissance dramatists of Europe. In England, Shakespeare's few dramas like Love's Labour's Lost and Much Ado About Nothing are regarded as some primary or early examples of comedy of manners. But in England, comedy of manners had its heyday, had its good day in the Restoration period. And for that reason, it is called Restoration comedy of manners. So now, the second point, what are the reasons of its popularity in Restoration England? With the restoration of Charles Stuart to the throne in 1660, theatre reopened in England after 18 years ban. He took an early interest in theatre. He enjoyed the French theatre while he was in exile in France, and upon returning to England, he granted patent to Thomas Congreve and Sir William Davenant, and that enabled Thomas Congreve and Sir William Davenant to create their own playhouses and theatre companies. Another reason behind the popularity of theatre in Restoration England is that theatre became an instrument to celebrate the end of Puritan regime with its strict moral code, and to rejoice the opening of theatre once again in England. The theatre or the plays became lavish and often sexually explicit or immoral according to the Puritan standards. But that kind of play, that kind of theatre was welcomed by the aristocratic people of England. But we have to keep it in mind that a strong opinion of the middle class people who were heavily influenced by the Puritan agenda still held the theatre as a source of immorality. They stayed away from theatre. They opposed to it. On the other hand, the rebel who filled the pit in Elizabethan theatre found the one ceiling entrance into the playhouse was too much for them, and for that reason they also stayed away from theatre. So when these two sections of society remain largely away from the theatre, the audience was mainly consisted of courtiers and aristocratic people of England who lived a leisure life in London, and the play of Restoration period depicted their lives, depicted their society, their manners of sophisticated living, and that is why these comedies are called now comedy of manners. Now I want to discuss the setting and the general atmosphere of these plays. Whenever we read comedy of manners or watch a performance, we feel it that we have left the real world and entered into an artificial, fashionable, sophisticated world of London gentry. The setting of these plays are always London. Elegant ladies and handsome gentlemen live their life of languid pleasure and pass their day in witty conversation with each other. Ladies often visit the fashionable St. James Park, and sooner or later they are joined with their male admirers. Men, when they are not with the ladies, sit in the chocolate houses, drink and play cards. Amid this infinite pleasure, there are two main preoccupations: sex and love. Male are always ready to have an affair, and ladies, whether they are married or unmarried, are ready to give them indulgence. Marriage only becomes a topic of discussion when it is guaranteed by some wealth which can be gained through the marriage. The countryside, which portrayed in these plays in a very restricted manner, there are little scope of the description of countryside, but that countryside, that short description does not provide any kind of hope for the countryside also. The relationship, the private emotions are also not displayed of these characters as it was according to the manners of society. Husband and wives are often indifferent to each other, but in public they show love. Ladies, though they distrust each other, suspect each other, appear to be best friends in public. And we can realize why comedy of manners is called artificial comedy, as the people forgot to be natural. They always try to follow the manners, the social propriety, and that made them artificial. The second thing is the plot of these comedies. Generally, the plot of Restoration comedy of manners is complicated, elaborate and complex. Comedy of manners relied on situational humor, that means on mistaken identity, disguise and misunderstanding, which created chicanery in the play. Though the audience are aware about the different kinds of trickery in the play, the characters are unknown of each other, and often in these plays there were subplot, even sometimes there were more than one subplot, and that created a kind of variety, though there were many kinds of tones in the plays, in these plays. Though these plays are not artistically finished because of that kind of elaborate complex plot and more than one subplot, the audience preferred this kind of play. The next salient features of the Restoration comedy is stock characters. In the play, we see some stock characters like rake, fop, sexually frustrated widows, country squares, and clever servants. The rake was actually an invention of Restoration comedy. He is very intelligent, witty, and arrogant, and also at the same time very macho character. That means his character displayed the male drive, the sexual drive of male. And the rakes represent the aristocratic people of London. The fops are generally the country square or the middle class people, rich middle class people who tried to imitate the aristocratic gentleman, often foolishly. The next important point is the use of language or the dialogue of Restoration comedy of manners. Restoration comedy of manners broke the tradition of its predecessors in the use of prose. Before that, dramas were written mainly in blank verse or in heroic couplet. But Restoration dramatists of comedy of manners used very sharp and witty prose. In Restoration dramas, many critics think that passion and emotion are replaced by wit. Samuel Johnson has called the characters of Restoration comedy of manners as intellectual gladiators. Wit in 17th century meant something more than the ability to make people laugh. Wit was governed by serious playfulness with words and ideas, where language is used in a very surprising way. The style in which an original idea is presented is as worthy of attention as the idea itself. The dramatists slowed down, decreased the pace of the development of plot to give the scope for the display of the wit through the debate of the characters. True wit has the capability to use all the armaments of language like pun, repartee, quibble, antithesis, paradox, epigram, and conceit. True wits were very much respected at that time because of their ability to use all these linguistic devices. The next thing which is worthy of attention is the theme of the Restoration comedy of manners. The Restoration comedy of manners is best known because of its immorality. The dialogue, the language, and the action are sexually explicit. Sexually explicit language was demanded by Charles II himself and also by the rakish atmosphere of his court. The dramatist did not criticize the accepted morality about gambling, drinking, love, courtship, and pleasure in general. The characters are guided by their lust, greed, and revenge. The themes. that repeat again and again in restoration comedy of manners bring out some social anxieties. For example, cuckolding is a recurring theme and it makes clear the concern of the male about their reputation, their anxiety that they may be duped by their wives. Also, seduction of women on stage was also a very popular theme in these plays, and it suggests the general atmosphere, the taste of the restoration audience, which was mainly consisted of aristocratic class. The theme of love and marriage, courtship, is also very important theme, and here we find that lovers are almost devoid of emotion. They are intellectual people full of wit, and the courtship, the marriage, is completely based upon social conventions where the property, the inheritance is of utmost importance. So these are the important characteristics of restoration comedy of manners. So in today's video, I have discussed the term comedy of manners, how and why it developed in restoration England and its important features. In the next video, I shall discuss the two stages of its development and the dramatists who were related with these two stages of development, and also the reasons of its decline. I shall also discuss in that video how the comedy of manners had influenced the dramatists of later generations. So today I am concluding here. Thank you for watching.